I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Alexander, it's time for you to give us a Brexit update. We have a lot going on this week. We have a Tuesday vote for Theresa May's deal. There are rumors that May also decide to go to Brussels before the vote and grovel to the Brussels technocrats and oligarchs in sitting in their ivory towers. For which you were telling me before we did this video, the guys in Brussels and the guys in the EU are not going to budge 1 inch. They're pretty hard in their stance. It also looks like the Leavers have also hardened their stance. So, Alexander, give us an update as to what is going on.
Yes, I mean, I think it's been a very, very interesting couple of days, actually. Now, if you go back to the last video, the last program we did about this, I said that both Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May had capitulated to the Remainers in their respective parties, that this ploy of setting up a centrist party had succeeded, and the result was that Jeremy Corbyn has committed the Labour Party to a referendum, and Theresa May has committed the Conservative Party to an Article 50 extension if had opened up the possibility of an Article 50 extension if her benighted deal, which everybody dislikes and has rejected before, does not pass. And what has happened is that since those twin capitulations took place, the momentum, surprisingly, has shifted back towards Leave, in the sense that people have been made very angry in both the Labour and the Conservative parties at the way their leaders folded. And we've seen a reaction set in. So it's becoming increasingly clear that more and more Labour MPs are very unhappy about the commitment to a second referendum. And there is now a reasonable possibility that enough will rebel to defeat this project, this concept, if it's ever put forward. But simultaneously, and far more importantly, it seems that Conservative MPs have hardened again against Theresa May's deal, and they have said that they will not vote for it, even if the risk is that that will mean that there will be an extension of Article 50 so that Brexit does not happen on the 29th of March. Now, I think that is actually quite momentous, because it now looks like that deal is going to fail by at least 100 votes. But the Brexiters within the Conservative Party are prepared to risk an extension, still working towards their objective, which it is now becoming increasingly clear is a no-deal Brexit. So they would rather have the risk of an Article 50 extension than Theresa May's deal, and they're still working towards a no-deal Brexit, because that is really the only realistic option now left.
Why does there have to be an extension? I'm failing to understand.
There doesn't have to be.
Yeah, why does there have to be an extension? Can't they just say on the 29th, the EU saying no, we're not going to, negotiate on the backstop stuff. We're done.
Yeah.
So the EU's closed their door. Yeah. It looks like May's going to lose on Tuesday, her support for her deal. Can't they just say, okay, 29th, we're out?
Well,
that's that.
Yes, that's what they should say.
WTO rules.
That's my consistent view for many months now. I mean, there is no other deal on offer. I mean, it's become absolutely clear that the European Union is behaving in the same way that the European Union always does. It takes a maximalist position that it has ground its opponent down in negotiations into sort of accepting. And having got this deal, it won't budge an inch. So Theresa May going to Brussels on Monday is not going to produce any change at all. If the British want to get the European Union to move, they should recommit themselves clearly to leaving the EU on the 29th of March, because otherwise the EU will simply say, well, there's another 3 months this has been extended by, and we will then hold on for those 3 months because we anticipate there'll be another extension at the end of it. So the only reason why there might be a extension on the 29th of March, despite the fact that that will weaken Britain's negotiating position, is because there are so many Remainer MPs in the House of Commons who will most probably vote for it. The problem that has beset this process from the start is that though the country voted for Brexit, those who oppose Brexit, those who are pro-EU, have a majority in the House of Commons.
Yeah, but they're voting for the extension. For what reason? What are they hoping to achieve in a 3-month extension that they couldn't achieve in a 2-year negotiation?
Well, this is an excellent question. The answer is, of course, that many of those people who are going to vote for an Article 50 extension don't want to see Brexit happen at all. So they're going to try and spin out this process for as long as they can in order to try to avoid having Brexit happen. So at the end of those 3 months, if there is an extension beyond the 29th of March, they will say, well, we still haven't got a deal, a satisfactory deal. No deal is not an option. Theresa May's deal is not an option. So let's have another 3-month extension or another 6-month extension or another 2-year extension. And that's their game plan. Whether it will work is another question. But the very interesting thing is that the Brexiters, the Leave MPs within the Conservative Party are prepared to risk that and say, look, we're not going to get a better deal. We're not prepared to accept Theresa May's deal. We're not really expecting to get a better deal from the EU. We're going to vote Theresa May's deal down. If there is going to be an extension on the 29th of March, we will remain as hardline as we have always been, and we will resist it to the extent that we can.
Remind me once again, why is a no deal not an option?
Well, I think it is the best option. So I don't think it is not an option.
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here by asking you the same questions over and over, but I can't understand it.
I mean, to my mind, it is the only philosophically consistent decision with the Brexit referendum outcome. But some people in London and a majority of the House of Commons have either convinced themselves or are talking as if it would be some kind of apocalyptic disaster. I don't think it is. I am sure that Britain would do perfectly well if there was a no-deal Brexit, but they've talked themselves into that position, and they are holding the whole Brexit process to ransom because of it.
What's going to be the public's reaction if we go into a 3-month extension in the UK, and especially the public outside of London, which is overwhelmingly in support of a Brexit? You take London, where everyone is in a majority to remain, and then you go outside of London, and it's a majority that wants to leave. And these are the people that have voted these MPs into power.
Yeah.
So what's going to be their reaction?
I think this is a very important point that you've just made. I mean, if you look at how people voted in 2016, 3 regions voted Remain. These are London, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is, of course, in a very anomalous position within the United Kingdom anyway. Scotland has been talking about seceding from Britain. And London is only one part of England. The overwhelming majority of people in England, or rather the big majority of the people in England, which is the heartland territory of the United Kingdom, voted Leave. And if you're asking me how they will react to an Article 50 extension, I think they will be very angry. And the people who will be most angry of all will be the people who support the Conservative Party, most of whose supporters and most of whose members support leave. So if there is going to be an Article 50 extension, there will be a furious reaction within the Conservative Party. And I think that there is now finally, if that happens, a real prospect. I've said this before, I really believe this time, that Theresa May will have to go because she has maneuvered the Conservative Party into this impossible position.
The suspicion is to me, and I'm sure is going to be for a lot of people, and we'll see from the comments as well, is that all of this has been done to lead up to a second referendum. So all these constituents outside of London, I would imagine they're going to have the same suspicion that this is basically the EU in collusion, in coordination, call it whatever you want, with all the MPs in London trying to work towards a second referendum and eventually work towards a Remain against the will of a democratic vote that took place a couple of years ago that specifically said we want out of the European Union.
Indeed, and can I just remind people that, of course, that referendum that happened in 2016 had a very simple question. Do you want Britain to leave the EU? And they said yes. And it was also said at the time that it would be a final and conclusive decision if they voted to leave the EU. So that was what people were told at the time. That is what they will be. That was what they were promised. A lot of people will treat an attempt to rerun the whole thing all over again as a massive breach of trust and a violation of that promise they were given the last time. My own personal view is that there isn't going to be a second referendum because I think there is too much opposition within the Labour Party to it, and I don't think that there is enough support for it in the country. But what I think we are seeing is a metropolitan, London-based elite trying to obstruct a Brexit that it doesn't want. It is using every conceivable device that it can find to try to prevent it happening. One is the second referendum idea. The other is, as I said, extending the period of time that Brexit happens basically indefinitely. The other is talking up to the most extreme degree the dangers of a no-deal Brexit. And what they're basically trying to do is to sabotage and undermine and reverse the Brexit referendum result, as they have, of course, as we've seen happen in many other EU countries with other referendums. And I think that is the agenda that is being followed. And because of Theresa May's incompetent negotiation and because of Jeremy Corbyn's weakness, we are closer to that ambition being achieved than we have ever been. But if that does happen, then I predict that there will be massive anger and alienation across Britain. I predict that this anti-EU, anti-establishment party that Nigel Farage is busy reorganising will take off massively. And I predict that Britain, which has been a very stable country politically for as long as anybody can remember, will cease to be so before very long.
All right. So I always ask you this question at the end of our Brexit discussions. What are we looking at going forward? Give us the breakdown next week, the next couple of weeks leading up to the 29th. What are we looking at?
Right. First of all, I think it is now a virtual certainty that Theresa May's deal will be voted down again, and that she will lose this time by at least 100 votes.
Tuesday night.
Yeah, Tuesday night. Maybe, it'd be less than the 250 votes that she lost by last time, but it will still be at least three figures. So I think that will fail. I predict that the attempt to have a second referendum will also fail. I'm sorry to say, I think there is a possibility, a very strong possibility, that the House of Commons will vote for a short, supposedly, Article 50 extension.
Is that also happening? Would that also happen Tuesday night, practically speaking?
It will happen in a succession of votes over the following days, but during that week. But I suspect then that there will be a concerted move within the Conservative Party by the Leavers to persuade Theresa May finally to leave, and that they will then try at last to do what they should have done months ago, which is to try and organise a new leadership election to bring to the leadership of the Conservative Party and to the office of Prime Minister someone who genuinely believes in Brexit, because it is quite clear that with Theresa May as Prime Minister, that isn't going to happen in any satisfactory way.
So organising the new leadership would happen after the Article 50 vote?
So. I'm afraid so. So we would have 3 months for that to happen and for a negotiation to happen, with all the huge risks that the government might completely collapse, that we might have new elections, that there might be that this new centrist party might take off in some way. That, by the way, I think is extremely unlikely, and that there might be a Labour victory. Who knows? But I mean, we could see we're looking forward in Britain to weeks of extreme turbulence and uncertainty, where if we were to leave on the 29th of March, we would have an end to this crisis and a return to stability and that certainty which businesses and people who are running the economy always say they need.
I have to ask. Yeah,
a mess by any definition.
I have to ask you the two alternative scenarios very quickly, Alexander, which are unlikely, but they're still scenarios. What happens in the scenario that Theresa May loses the Tuesday night vote and the Article 50 extension gets turned down? And what are the chances? What does the scenario look like if she actually wins the vote?
Right. If she wins the vote, I think it's over. I think we get Britain is committed to this dreadful deal that she's got, and we had Brexit on the 29th of March, but Britain locked permanently into a customs union with the EU, and with the EU basically getting what it wants. I think
so. That's that scenario.
That's that scenario. If she loses the Article 50 extension vote, frankly, I think that is an extraordinary situation. I think in that situation, we would probably be looking to a no-deal Brexit on the 29th of March, irrespective of what people in the House of Commons want.
Wow.
Because the only conceivable way out of that situation then would be for the British government to cancel Article 50 without a referendum, which I don't think anybody in Westminster is prepared to do. I think that would be so damaging politically that I think it would create a political crisis, the like of which we have never seen. So I think if she loses the Article 50 vote, which I have to say I think is extremely unlikely, then, as I said, we would have a no deal Brexit on the 29th of March. I'm sorry to say this. I think the most likely outcome is that we will have an Article 50 extension. I think that is extremely bad. I think that's an awful outcome. I've seen legal advice that says that it would be an awful outcome. But it seems, as I said, that the Leavers are simply not prepared to swallow this deal that Theresa May has done, and that they're prepared to risk an Article 50 extension rather than accept that deal.
Wow, big night, Tuesday night, big night.
Oh, it's going to be, that whole week is going to be huge. And we will keep, obviously, watching and updating our viewers as it happens.
Absolutely. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to get notifications every time we push out a new video. Visit the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, help support the Duran. In the description box down below, you'll find links to our PayPal and Patreon pages. Please donate to the Duran. That helps us out a lot. And you can get a copy of this video in iTunes and Soundcloud audio format as well. And you can go to theduran.com and read all the links that Alexander is reading every morning. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody. Take care.